Hello. Today we will be discussing the article Disability and Autonomy, Priming Alternative Identities by Wang and Dovidio. I'm Lauren.
I'm Honore. I'm Vashunda.
I'm Charlie.
In our society, people with disabilities, both psychological and physical, struggle as an underrepresented group in higher educational and professional settings. The stigma surrounding disability causes discrimination, and there have not been many studies looking at how such prejudice affects targeted disabled people. This study looked at how disabled people reacted when primed with different aspects of their identity, either as a student or a person with a disability. Previous research indicated that people with disabilities are viewed as lacking autonomy and incompetent. However, how people with disabilities respond to such attacks can shape their social exchanges and possibly counteract such stigmatization. Next slide, please. Because a disabled person has many different defining characteristics and traits relating to their social groups, the researchers predicted that priming them with different aspects of their identity would impact behavior. For this study, identity was primed with a series of demographic questions focusing on either students or disabled people. They then measured activations on autonomy and dependency. Overall, they hypothesized that the ways people with disabilities respond to priming of their disability versus student identities would vary as a result of their sensitivity to being stigmatized and their level of stigma consciousness. Lastly, they also predicted that people with a non-apparent disability would face less problematic interactions than those with apparent disabilities.
Okay, so methods. So how the researchers are going to do this experiment? First, they recruited 116 students. There are 35 men and 79 women as their participants for this study. And these people have different levels of disability, ranging from learning disability, psychiatric disability, to very obvious physical disabilities. And all these people are divided into two groups using random assignment. The first group is the disability prime group, and the second group is student prime group. And before the study starts, the researchers tell these people they're going to do two tasks in this experiment. And for the disability prime group, they first answer a series of questions about their disability types and onset, visibility, and involvement with the disability community. So basically a bunch of questions about their disabilities. The second group asked about student prime group were asked to provide information about university affiliation and involvement in the campus community, so more to their student identity side. And then these two groups got back together and do this first task together, which is a word fragment completion task for implicit activation measurement. So this task has two parts. The first is to test their activation of autonomy-related concepts, and the second part is activation of dependency-related concepts. Basically, they show them pieces of words and see which word they related to. So for example, STR something NG could be strong or string, ASSI could be assistance or assignment. And after these people finish those tasks, they receive a score on the autonomy activation and dependency activation. So it's a separate score, so they receive a score for each of them, and from 0 to 3. And 0 means more to the assistance side, and 3 means more to the assignment side. And then they were asked to provide prime numbers from 0 to 100 in sequence. So this task is to assess willingness to seek help. And the reason why they picked this task is it's kind of hard, but it's also achievable if they give enough effort without asking for help. So, and this is also accessible for the blind people, because they don't need computer or anything. And after this task, they did a stigma consciousness questionnaire. And next slide, please. And because this paper didn't show the questionnaire, so I found the original paper, which this paper was cited, and the format of stigma consciousness questionnaire. So this is basically how the questions looks like, but this is more about gender, and the questionnaire we use it in this research is about disability. Next slide, please. And after the stigma consciousness questionnaire, they were asked to complete the demographic questions, and that's all. That's all the experiment.
Okay, results. So, none of the effects involving dependency activation was significant. However, efforts regarding autonomy activation was significant. So, dependency wasn't a significant effect, but activation, autonomy was more of a significance in the student prime group. Students in the disabled prime condition listed fewer words autonomy related than students in the student prime condition, which means that right here, if you look at this graph, you'll see that more students in the student prime condition wrote more autonomy related words than the students in the disability condition. And students who had a higher stigma consciousness was more primed to be a student or a disabled student. Autonomy activation was moderate by the stigma consciousness, and help-seeking measurements, the disabled prime was 47% of them wanted to ask for help, and 42 wanted help in the student prime. So students that was primed to activate their disability asked for more help than students who were just student prime. And there wasn't much significant difference when it came to prime and the stigma consciousness.
All right, so in review, Wang and Dovidio hypothesized that students with disabilities who were primed with student aspects of their identities as opposed to aspects of their identities involving being a person with a disability would result in higher autonomy-related concepts, and this was actually supported. They also hypothesized that the activation of more autonomous-related concepts would predict a lower likelihood for asking for help. This was not supported, and that the priming manipulation had only an indirect influence on help-seeking and was therefore non-significant. Thirdly, they hypothesized that the effect of priming would be stronger among participants with a higher stigma consciousness, and this was supported. But the hypothesis that the visibility of the student's disability would moderate the effect was not supported. The effects actually generalized across a range of disabilities. So, some limitations and suggestions for future research. So while autonomy was activated, dependency levels were not. This could have been due to a limitation in the study's design. Both groups, for both primes, had to sign a consent form before the study that could have worked as a prime to their disability status. In relation to the absence of direct priming having effect on help-seeking, Wang and Dovidio suggest that this may have been the results of the quantitative task that would prompt help-seeking being too far removed from their daily challenges. There are a number of suggestions for future research, one of them being that researchers could build on Wang and Dovidio's findings and further distinguish between awareness and internalization of negative stereotypes. Secondly, researchers could also separate the influences between how people with disabilities value their group versus how they think others would value their group. So in conclusion, promoting psychological and social autonomy can enhance the psychological resilience of people with disabilities. These findings also stress the importance of language, as distinguishing a person from the disability not only affects how others view people with disabilities, but how people with disabilities think about themselves. Thank you.